Nas, so we're dealing with history of Islam.
Okay.
And of course, we had this discussion a long time ago, maybe last year. So evidence for idolatry in Arabia. I quoted Leila Naimi's research. Has been further information also that Ahmad al-Jalad has looked at. Essentially, there seems like even before the middle of 7th century, for a couple of centuries, idolatry didn't exist in Arabia. So, did you find any evidence for idolatry in Arabia when Muhammad is supposed to have been?
What's the latest anyway? What's the latest now?
Latest is Leila Naimi's article has been. So she wrote an article, No Idolatry in Mecca, 7th century. Ahmad al-Jalad, more details,
I asked him
similar
about,
conclusion.
About give me his historical fact.
So,
the existence
do you
wait, a
do
second,
you
wait,
have?
wait. You know what he did? He gave me historian. I give him historian talking about the existence of Mecca, yeah, before Islam. Okay, no, he didn't accept it. Hypocrite, charlatan. I don't know why you waste your time with him.
Don't bring your hand like that.
What did you
So-
think of the historian?
He doesn't. I don't know if you know him. He doesn't know how history works. He doesn't. I think he's just a cameraman. Cameraman with some notes on his phone and stuff. So let me ask you.
Doji, hypocrite.
Why? What's wrong with these fellows? Do you not train your cameramen well before they show up here?
Not my camera.
Because you visit the video, that's why we put in
Not
our
interested.
camera.
Please
You
stay away.
understand?
Please
No,
stay
we
away.
put in our camera.
Thank you very much.
You were happy when the
Thank
camera
you.
is not
But
there,
if you
but
can
we
stay
put in the
away,
camera.
please.
I'm
We're trying
not
to have an
touching you.
intellectual
I'm not touching you.
conversation.
We put in our
We're
camera.
trying to have an intellectual
Where-
conversation.
we put
Trying
our
to
camera
have.
because
We're
you
trying.
edit the video.
Thank you.
Yeah, you
But
edit the
thank you
video,
very
that's
much.
why, because
Okay.
we are
So evidence.
not trustworthy, shameless.
Thank you.
that's why.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
You understand?
So history. Nas, evidence. Yeah, that's my book. I might have shown this a long time ago. So Nas, let me ask you a few questions. Evidence for idolatry in Mecca. Do you know of any evidence at all from the any historical evidence to ascertain there was idolatry? No problem. Idolatry in the middle of 7th century when Mecca is supposed to have been when Muhammad is supposed to have ministered against idolaters.
So from the traditions, like from Sunni Shia sources.
Traditions, I mean, if you have Sira literature in mind, if you have Hadith literature in mind, they are very late sources. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about qualified historical resources, i.e. contemporary evidence, some sort of contemporary evidence, archaeological, for the existence of idolatry in Mecca in the 7th century.
So when it comes to idolatry in the Quran criticizes them. It's not so much the belief in Allah, but it's more so that they do not worship Allah alone.
But my question isn't whether the Quran claims anything or not. The Quran is under scrutiny already. What is under scrutiny can't be a witness. My point is, do you have any archaeological evidence for idolatry having been in existence in Arabia, Hijazi area, in the 7th century?
Yeah, so the type of worship which is criticized in Islam has to do with like supplication. So with that type of, you wouldn't necessarily expect there to be like archaeological type evidence. So the belief is in one God, but nonetheless they supplicate through either Mary or through saints or angels, and that is what is criticized or condemned in the Quran.
In Mecca, was there no idols?
So it does seem like there were Christians in Mecca and also Jews.
Yeah, apart from them, were there pagan idols at all?
So from the traditional sources, it does mention that the Kaaba was filled with idols.
Yeah. So in other words, we would expect to find archaeological sources for them. Do we have any?
Not necessarily.
What do you mean? If they're filled with idols, if idol worship was rampant across the Arabian Peninsula at that time, idols are archaeological artifacts. We should find them. Where are they? Do we know? Have we found any?
Yeah, so the archaeological evidence for us today But in 7th century Arabia, once they embraced Islam, and since Islam is so anti-idol, the idols wouldn't have any use or meaning for them. So they would have been destroyed because they no longer worship the idols. So that would be my understanding in a nutshell.
Okay, okay, all right, okay. So, but do you have any evidence for the pre-7th century existence of Mecca? Any pre-7th century existence of Mecca as a city?
Did Sam mention Ptolemy?
Yeah, he mentions.
From the 2nd century or something. He's a historian and he has a map of the Arabian Peninsula, and he mentions Mecca as Makraba.
Yeah, Makraba. Where does he place it?
So it's not like it's basically west coast.
Yeah, so west coast, but where? North or south?
Middle west coast.
So you think Makraba that he refers to is the Mecca of today?
Yes.
So if there is evidence, what is that?
Neil Robertson.
What?
Neil Robertson from Leeds University, in his book Discovering the Quran, he interprets that to be a reference to Mecca.
No problem. So when in terms
I'm just looking for the map.
no, that's fine. In terms of the inscriptions that we have very solid evidence today.
For monotheism. For monotheism.
We have. So you mentioned earlier when I asked about idols, you mentioned idols were destroyed, but remarkably, thousands of inscriptions have been found, rock inscriptions. Thousands have been found, many with references to idolatry. Many. So, in terms of idolatry, given that many have been found, you also find,
like 6th century, you mean 6th or 5th century?
Yeah, essentially the first few centuries, 5-6 centuries pre-Islam, we have rock inscriptions, pre-Arabic, Nabatean script, Proto-Arabic, Nabatean inscriptions, and what we find is for a couple of centuries before Islam is supposed to have arrived on the scene, there was no idolatry. We have evidence for that.
Okay. So idolatry in Islam is not necessarily worshipping a statue, can also be in...
No, but you agreed earlier, in Mecca, there was idolatry. And that idolatry is classical idolatry with physical idols. So idolatry existed. So please don't talk about, essentially there was clear classical idolatry. But in the rock inscriptions, we find evidence to the contrary.
Yes, so according to the traditional sources from like Sunni Shia sources, they make mention of the Kaaba being filled with statues.
But they are late sources, very late sources. Which sources do you have in mind?
So you can say Ibn Ishaq, but...
Very late source.
But Ibn Ishaq is not necessarily the first or earliest biography of the Prophet. There were other biographies as well. And Ibn Ishaq incorporates like pre-existing sources.
What is the earliest evidence for Ibn Ishaq?
In manuscript form, I don't know from the top of my head.
We don't know. Ibn Ishaq is by no means is an available artifact today. Ibn Hisham isn't even available. So please, I want early sources. I don't want late.
Ibn Hisham is not available.
Well, in terms of manuscriptal evidence for what we are talking about, we don't have these things. So what I am asking is very simply, please use early evidence.
I don't have a
Nas,
problem with
early evidence.
I accept late sources that are based upon pre-existing material. So I accept
okay, use late source. What's that?
So like the Old Testament, like the book of Genesis, I accept Genesis, even though the manuscripts are like more than 1,300 years after Moses.
No, the for
The Dead Sea Scrolls.
if you want to have a debate on this as to why the Old Testament is credible, I can get into this. So Nas, I'm because you're making a false. No. You're making a false equivalence. You're talking about a false equivalence here. Israel as a nation was a nation which experienced signs and wonders over a prolonged period of time. Prolonged period of time. In Islam, you don't have it. So you can't compare them both.
Genesis is authored by Moses, but the earliest manuscripts for Genesis, I believe, is from the Dead Sea Scrolls.
But are you listening to what I'm saying? You're not listening to what I'm saying. If you want to,
Old Testament
They-
as a whole rather than Genesis.
what I am saying is the biblical narrative, the biblical case, the way in which we approach the biblical case is very different. Because in the case of the biblical community, they were a people group who saw signs and wonders over a prolonged period of time, including even in the time of Jesus Christ. Signs and wonders. You don't have this with Islam. When you don't have this with Islam, you can't just make things up as you go
What
along.
are the documentary evidence for the signs and wonders that the Israelites witnessed?
Okay, let's start here. For the Bible, let's start with Jesus Christ. Do you agree Jesus performed signs and wonders?
From the Quran, yeah.
But do
I
you...
believe in the Quran, yeah.
The Quran is under scrutiny. You haven't provided any evidence for the Quran yet.
Is the Bible under scrutiny as well?
Absolutely. The Bible can be... The Bible...
Use the Bible.
No, not while its veracity hasn't been established. While it is treated as a doubtful literature, you can't use that.
Who doubts the Quran as a contemporary text from the time of the Prophet?
So, for who doubts the Quran? What?
Yeah, as a contemporary literature from the time of the Prophet or from the 7th century.
We have all sorts of problems with the Quranic history. Also, do we have any manuscripts for? Do we have any of the Uthmanic manuscripts available today?
According to Sidki, we may have either 99% or 100% manuscripts from the 7th century or from the first.
Let me ask you this question again, because you're not addressing my question. Do we have any of the Uthmanic mushafs today?
So the Birmingham manuscripts, for example, is identified with either coming from Usman's time or predating Usman.
But do we have any of the Uthmanic manuscripts today?
So I mentioned the Birmingham manuscript.
So you claim Birmingham.
Possibly the Sana as well.
So you claim Birmingham manuscript is Uthmanic manuscript?
It's from his time.
I'm not asking that. And this is why you are evading my question. My question in specific is Uthmanic manuscripts. The standardized manuscripts that Uthman produced, Uthman ordered to be produced, which were produced according to Islamic tradition. Do we have any evidence for them today?
So I'm not the best person to ask.
But you are reasonable. I mean, if you can't answer this question, no one can. No Muslim can. Do we have any Uthmanic? In your knowledge, is there any Uthmanic mushaf today? Which one?
If you go to the Islamic Awareness website.
But which one is Uthmanic mushaf today?
Yes, if you go to the Islamic-Awareness.
I've gone through. I don't think they talk about Uthmanic manuscript today. No. I've gone through the entire list. They don't talk about. They don't. Please find out, please, and tell me which one is the Uthmanic. Which ones are Uthmanic manuscripts?
Yeah, so they've identified, for example, from Topkapi, Istanbul,
Topkapi is Uthmanic manuscript.
or from Samarkand.
Topkapi and Samarkand are Uthmanic mushafs, is what they are claiming. Where are they claiming that? Where are they claiming
They
that?
also have the Istanbul again.
Where are they claiming that? I don't see the claim. Where are they claiming that?
Yes, I beg your pardon. I made a mistake.
Yeah.
They say. Sorry, I had it here. Sorry, I had it before. but yeah, basically they're not making the claim.
No one is. I went through the
For
entire
this
thing.
specific
No one is making this claim. This idea of Uthmanic Musafs.
But there are manuscripts that are identified from the time of Usman, or if not even earlier. Than
What is the no? This is not true. Nas, you're making
like
things
the
up as you go along.
Like the Birmingham manuscript.
No. Please, you're making things up as you go along. Please don't do that. No manuscript today is credibly identified as Uthmanic Musaf
How
today.
many manuscripts do we have from the time of the disciples of Jesus?
Let's go to that later. I'm talking about the Quran. I'm talking about the Quran right now.
Yeah, but we have to be fair, isn't it?
No,
we can't.
I'll come to the Bible in a little bit. I'll come to the
Do we
Bible.
have any first century manuscripts of Matthew or John's Gospel?
You understand, Nas. You should very well understand the context we are talking. You're comparing apples with oranges. You would understand this.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, Islamic land.
Don't want to discuss.
Islamic Hijazi land, Nas, Hijazi land, Mecca and so on, Hijazi land hasn't been, Nas, Hijazi land hasn't been taken over continually from the time of Muhammad. Hasn't been taken over. No, it's not. We are talking about the Quran right now. Uthmanic Musaf don't exist. Do we agree on this?
I disagree. I just need to.
So,
I need to read more.
okay, that's fine. You please do more. But while you
I
do,
don't have a problem because we have first.
but
century.
while you do more, don't disagree already. Don't do, because when you have to do research, don't make the claim already. So, Uthmanic Musafs don't exist. Number one. Number two. Let me come to this, please. Do we have any of the early manuscripts complete? Quranic manuscripts complete. When is the earliest complete Quranic manuscript?
I don't know from the top of my hand, but we have first century manuscripts which are either 99% or 100%.
Which one is that?
So like the Birmingham manuscript.
Birmingham manuscript is 99%?
No, I said the manuscripts altogether from the first century.
I'm talking
make
about-
up the Quran.
Is there a single manuscript which is an entire copy, which is an entire Quran?
Okay, let's just
When is the
agree to
earliest?
disagree.
When
We'll
is
have
the
a discussion.
when is the earliest?
gonna run away.
When is the
Okay,
earliest?
Islam.
When is the earliest complete Quran we have?